right, we're going to get started. How's everybody doing? Don't have the nerves yet? I have them. I'm worried for you. I always worry about everybody. All right. So I'm just going to give you a brief presentation. I know we're going to break you out. Just feel free to stop me if you have any questions as we go, and then I'll take questions at the end. This is just to, calm the nerves, make sure you're doing the right things, make sure you're thinking this through, because we do realize how nervous people get, and nervous people make mistakes, and we've lived through some doozies. So we don't want you guys to do that. We want you to be comfortable with what you're getting to go through. I just want to talk about some things for you to, and I'm sure you've probably already done many of these things, but just some things to think about as you're putting your rank order list together. You want to think about the quality of the program, the reputation of the program, what kind of faculty does that program have. Hopefully you've either already done a rotation there, and or when you were there for interview, you got to know some of these folks and got to assess those areas. One of the big things that we hear about from our house staff and even from students is, we really want to make sure that we're going into a program that fits us. Some people want as much lecture as they possibly can get. Other people want to be on the floors or in the OR. So hopefully when you're out there, you got to see your programs that you're most interested in, and they match your personality. Are you a floor person, OR person? Give me that saw and let's get this done. Or are you, hey, I'd like to do that, but I also want to hear as much as possible in lecture. So those are things that you should be thinking about. And then what you're all going to find more and more, and we are ramping it up here pretty big time. And I didn't say big leg, if you know what that means. Anyway, research opportunities. The ACGME is very big on research. The AOA is fair on research, but the AOA is changing all of their programs. We're changing them here. Even with our programs here, we now give the house staff money to take their research out. So if you're really interested in research, hopefully you've thought that through, and that's part of how you're going to rank your programs, because some programs are really big. Even here, I have programs that say you're going to do a project every year of your residency, and then I have others that say you're going to work on projects, but you're not necessarily going to complete one every year. So those are things that you should be considering when you're putting your list together. And then, I know we talked about this last January. If you're looking at fellowship, hopefully you interviewed at places that not only have the fellowship that you're interested in, but also have the residency, because it's really hard to go from doing a residency here and then going somewhere else to finish your fellowship, because you're competing against the people that have been there for 3 years and have had that opportunity to impress. So when you're doing your rank order list, if you're not sure between two sites, but the one has the fellowship and the other one doesn't, I would put the one that has the fellowship first or ahead of the other one, depending on where your list is, because it's much easier to get a chance to work with those folks, make an impression, and possibly get into their fellowship. Our fellowship programs consist of probably 85% or more of the residents that went through our program. So that's something you really got to give some consideration. And then hopefully, again, when you were there, you got to see if the residents were happy, not the cheerleader they put in front of you at interviews, right? You got to work with them, meet them. Hey, this is a good program. They're all happy. They're not all walking around miserable, mad at the program director or the assistant program director. I think that's going to be really important. And then staff camaraderie. Do they have a good working relationship with the program coordinator? Program coordinators can ruin a program. They're miserable, they're not helpful, they don't want to help you, they don't care. So hopefully you got to meet them a little bit, or you've heard the residents talk about them. I've heard some of our programs coordinators referred to as den mothers, camp counselors. Those are the kinds of things you want to hear about the program coordinator. And then the facilities, obviously, that's something else that you would take into consideration. Did they have a nice call room? It's important, believe it or not, it's really important. Do they have other, do they have a wellness center? Do they have things like that in addition to the other pieces that you're looking for? Some additional things, location, do I have a good support system close? I mean, some of you are going to be getting married during residency, some of you are going to have children during residency, some of you might need to be close to your parents because they're not well. These are all things you take into consideration when you're putting your list together, because it can get to be very hard to try to travel across the country if you need to help a parent. So, you want to take that in. Maybe your parents are perfectly healthy and there's no problems there. I mean, when I was your age, I never worried about my parents. And they're both in their 80s now, and I still don't worry about them because my grandparents lived to be older than they are now. So, you understand the history, but those are things to think about. We have a lot of house staff that start families, and it's nice to have mom or dad or the in-laws around to help out in that situation because your schedules are going to be tough. It's not easy. You're going to be, call all these hours you're going to work. It's not easy. I know it was a huge help for me when my wife and I started our family. Housing and salary, there are some programs that are in very high income areas where it's not easy to find a room to stay in, an apartment, a townhouse or something like that. So those are things you should be thinking about. Am I going to be house broke? Meaning everything I'm making is going into my condo or my apartment. Employment opportunities. Most folks, when you look at the data, end up, a large majority of them end up working where they did their residency or within that general area. So you want to see if there's going to be some opportunities there. It's something to take into consideration. And then, finally, is the program a good fit for me? Do I see myself working with these residents? Did I meet enough of the residents to realize they're a good group? Did I meet enough of the residents to realize they're a miserable group and I just don't want to be there? If you think you're going to go and change the culture, probably not. Probably wouldn't happen unless you get into a group that's like you that wants to change the culture, and even that takes a little bit of time because when you're a first year and a second year, it's hard to do. It can be done. I don't know if I would want to put that on my plate when I was trying to get through residency. And then that kind of goes hand in hand. And it's really important to like your program director. Can't tell you how important that is. Things not to consider. Whether or not you think they liked you. Some program directors are cold as can be during an interview. Behind the scenes, they're great folks. They might not let on to you that they really want you in their program, and you might not know. So some people walk out of interviews and say, oh, they don't like me, when that's not necessarily true. And then some people walk out and say, oh, I know I'm getting it. Look, they said this, they said that. That's definitely not true. We can line up the people here that walked out of interviews thinking they were in and they weren't. And it wasn't because they weren't a quality candidate. There was just probably other candidates that the programs liked it a little bit more. The positive feedback you get after interview, I can't tell you how many times we've heard, well, the residents said, that's great. The residents get a say, but not that much of a say. If a program director says, you're here, or, I'm going to rank you highly, they probably are. Doesn't mean you're going to match there. It means you're going to be ranked on their list and you'll be up top somewhere, but if they're only taking 5 and you're number 7, they didn't lie. You are highly ranked, but you might not match. I can't tell you how many times we rank programs and we get our top 5 or we get our top 6 and we don't even go down our list. So, they give you good feedback because they want you to feel good about where you might be ranked, but they're not guaranteeing a spot. And that goes with that bullet point. Bottom line, you should always rank in order of your preference, and you should rank any and all programs that you think you will be happy at. This is not to say that if you interviewed at 15 places, you're eliminating 7 of them because you don't know if you'll be happy there. You're more than likely to be happy in your residency. It's not out of the realm to not rank 2 or 3, but when you're eliminating half, you're probably cutting your list down too far. And I think I told you guys a story last year about the EM candidate from here, 23 interviews. We said you don't have to rank everybody. She did anyway. She got her 23rd spot. So, but she knew she'd be okay there. She liked it enough, but we were saying, hey, you don't have to. And this person had 690 board scores. So that's pretty high for EM. So you rank them unless you absolutely know, hey, this is not for me. They broke some rules in the interview. They asked me if I was going to rank them number 1. They're not allowed to ask. You're allowed to tell. They're allowed to tell, but nobody's allowed to ask. They might ask you some other things that you thought were inappropriate. Those are the programs you don't rank. But if everything else is equal and you had a fine interview and none of this went on, then I say you put them on your list. because at the end of the day, we all need to be in residency. You don't have to rank all your programs, but you need to be prepared to scramble during the SOAP process. And if you talk to anybody that went through that process, you'll find out that if you think this is nerve-wracking, try that week. It's a nightmare. You can submit your application to a program during the ACGME SOAP. You cannot call them. You cannot have anybody call on your behalf. When they get your application, they make a decision if they're going to interview you or not during the SOAP. And then they reach out to you. The minute you reach out or have somebody reach out for you, you've violated the SOAP agreement, or not the SOAP agreement, but the match agreement, and you could be in trouble and you could be blackballed. So you don't want to get yourself in that position. So just know and none of you are going to end up in the SOAP, but if you did, don't call and don't ask somebody to call on your behalf. That's a violation. There is no secret to the rank order list. Just put them in your order. It's been a while, but I did have at least one or two students a few years ago independently come to me and say they figured out the match, they know how to game it. There's no figuring this out. There's no gaming it. Now, the one happened to get his first spot, but it wasn't because he gamed the system. It's an algorithm. It's set up. It goes into a computer. It spits it out. There's no gaming it. Just rank them in your order. No student that's lower on a program's list will take your spot away. And I got some number. I got a little example here. If you rank a program, let me say this. If a program ranks you number 1, you have them number 15 on your list. You don't match in your top 14. You're matching to that program that had you number 1, even though they're 15th on your list. And it wouldn't matter if your best friend had them 10th on your list. If they were 10th on their list, they're not getting the spot. It's the program that ranks you within a match spot that's on your list. That's where you're going to end up. You cannot lose your spot to somebody just because they rank them higher. So again, the algorithms are all set up for you guys. Just rank your programs in that order. There's no risk to ranking. Some people worry about, well, do I rank, Harvard over all the other programs because I don't want to mess up my list. There's no risk to putting a Harvard program first. If you match, congratulations, that's awesome. But if you don't, if you have number 2 is, some small little community hospital in Utah, not picking on Utah, but it just came to mind, that's fine, that's where you're going. So just know that that's how that plays out. We got a lot of students over the years who come in and say, hey, I'm shortening my list. I got a phone call. They told me I'm in. They've assured me I'm in. That's all well and good. I cannot tell you how many times we've had students say to us, they told me I'm number 1. They told me I'm in number, and then they don't match and they don't know what happened. Lists change. They change at the last minute. For all kinds of reasons, you could get bumped out inadvertently. Just take feedback that you get for what it is. I know I told you guys last year, if somebody asks you, they're breaking the rules, but I think the best answer to anybody, as long as it's true, is that you'd be honored to be in their program. You're not lying, and you're not necessarily helping them break the rules, but it's a fair answer, and I think it's true. If you're going to rank them, then it's true. You would be honored to be there. You'll be honored to be in any residency program that's on your list because, 1, you applied, so you must have thought something positive, and 2, you put them on your list, right? So you're not going to put something on there that you wouldn't be honored to be in. So just think about it that way. I need a spot, right? I'm going to put these in the order where I want to go. I'm going to hope for the high and accept the low on my list. This was a study done. I'll let you read it. I'm not going to read it to you. I think you all read better than I do. It's interesting. Right? They got all that feedback, thought that's where they were going. 1 in 5. So there's more than 5 here, so that's going to happen to somebody. It's okay, because you're going to have a nice list. You're going to go to number 2 or 3. This kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier. They're going to rank you highly, and you might be 7th on their list, and you are ranked highly, but they're only taking 5. We never know. Sometimes I match 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and sometimes I match 1, 2, 6, 7, 8. We never know who we're getting off of our rank order list, and that goes on all over the country. So maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we went down to number 12 on ortho, which is unheard of today. But now the last 2 years, we've gotten our top 5. So we never know how the match is going to play out. If they're telling you that they think highly of you, accept them for what it is. Don't accept it as a you're in, and just do your list again the way we talked about. So I think I talked about not shortening, talked about not scrambling. That's not a strategy. It's kind of like hope is not a strategy. Scrambling is not a strategy. That's not what you should be gunning for. You should be putting your list in and gunning for a spot right out of the match. Remember that it's a binding contract to match. So if you put somebody on there, if you rank them, you will go. You got to be prepared to move anywhere in the country. There's no getting out of this. If you get out of it, typically they will ask you to stay out of any residency for a year, and if you just flat out break it and don't try to negotiate your way out, which is almost impossible, you'll end up blackballed. I know of one student that was blackballed for 3 years. So you have to be careful with this. If you match, you're going. I put this first bullet in. I don't think any of you ran into this. You should not have run into this. It was an accepted practice 5 years ago where they were able to sign you in advance of the match. They were allowed to sign DOs in advance of the match. They're not allowed to anymore. I did hear a rumor that maybe this was going on somewhere in the last 2 years. So that was a no-no. Hopefully you didn't have that. But don't worry about it. It's not supposed to happen anymore. I think we talked about this. You know, you can express interest in a program, but you can't ask, and they can't ask you. And again, you're bound by the results of the match. Some final considerations. Don't wait till the last minute to put your list together. I would say to you, by this time tomorrow night, have your list in. When we put in our list, it didn't happen in the last couple years, but maybe 3 years ago we had a problem, and it was on their end. They get so overwhelmed at the last minute that sometimes it clogs up. Get it in, get it done, walk away, have a good week. At this point, if you haven't figured this out, you'll have it figured out tonight after you talk to one of us. Get your list in. And don't go back and revisit it and start changing things. We had an SOM student who changed his list a little before midnight, the night it was all due, when his significant other, one of my residents, came home. I'm surprised he's still alive. And then they called me on Monday morning, what can we do? And the answer was nothing. And the AOA said, yeah, there's nothing. So they ended up giving up an ENT spot because they switched their list and ended up in a traditional rotating spot. And I know they would have got ENT because we had them ranked number 1 here. So they blew it. They ended up in dermatology. We laugh about this because their name keeps popping up on lists. This is a brilliant guy who was very likable. I think we all liked him. He ended up in a dermatology program after the TR year. Then he switched out of that into ENT, which is what he wanted when he was with us. And this year his name popped up on the list again and he's back in dermatology. So I think he's going to be doing residencies for the rest of his life. Eventually he's either going to be a dermatologist or an ENT, or he's going to be both. But just don't do that. It's a nightmare scenario. His significant other might be his wife at this point, I'm not sure. I promise you I had to hold her back from murdering him. She was that mad at him. It was not a good thing. So, but 2 wonderful people, really, really wonderful people. As I just said, do it early, walk away, get the burden off your shoulders. Be done with it. We do it. When we do it a week in advance because we don't want the burden, and it's done. So that's a very strong recommendation. Some of this information came from the NRMP, but most of it was ours. So any questions? I know we're going to do some individual stuff. I do know that some of you are looking for, may be looking for advanced standing. I've gotten emails from a few people, maybe 4. If you match into a program advanced standing, we are holding positions in our TR program until after the NRMP. We can't, there is a blackout period for us. We can't get into your application, and we can't talk to you starting on March 12th. And we can only start talking to you after the SOAP ends on Thursday. I believe it's the 15th. And I think SOAP ends at 11 o'clock this year. It used to end at 5, but I think it ends at 11 this year. After that, we can talk to you. So you can come to our office after 11. You can call or email us and say, hey, I matched here. I have an advanced standing spot. I'm looking for a TR. We'll pull your application. We'll talk to Dr. Bailey, our program director, and offer out from there. So again, we'll have some spots. We will not wait till Friday. We will not wait till 5 o'clock on Thursday. We're going to fill them quickly. And believe me, our phones usually explode as soon as the SOAP process is over with everybody that didn't match. So if you're in that category and you're interested, you got to reach out to us right away. Any questions? It's pretty simple. Do your list, do it by tomorrow night, put them in the order that you prefer. Walk away, and we'll all celebrate the week of the 12th. Dr. Boyd?
5 people on, so I just wanted to see if anybody online has any questions to go ahead and submit them.
It's almost over. Yeah. Yeah, absolute no-no. They could those 2 programs could both end up with either severe warnings or kept out of the match. Oh, they're not in the match. You're supposed to put all of your spots into the match, so they could be sanctioned. Interesting.
No questions? Oh, why is that so loud? So we'll skip to the
individuals. Yeah.
You have your these. Also, Lisa Cardello's not here today. Her daughter's sick, so Dr. Lambert graciously offered to sit in, and